Mr. Chairman, I'm honored to speak today on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community CARICOM. I assure you and the members of the Bureau of CARICOM's full support and cooperation in the execution of the Commission's work. The annual session of the Commission on the Status of Women provides us with an opportunity to review progress made in the implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and renew our shared commitments to achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. We're now in the decade of action to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals, and it is imperative that introspection is followed by action. It is a travesty that 25 years after Beijing, no country has achieved gender parity. This year's theme of women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence, is timely. Both elements are critical to achieving gender equality and the Sustainable Development Goals. Women are playing an essential role in the socio-economic and political development of the CARICOM region and can be found in leadership positions in every sphere of influence, including politics, public services, business, and in civil society. There is, however, still much work to be done. The UN Secretary General's report, released in 2020, highlights that worldwide women are still underrepresented in public life and decision-making. Less than 7% of the heads of state are women, and while the proportion of women in parliament has doubled globally since 1995, men still hold 75% of seats. While not present in large numbers, historically, women in the Caribbean community have been actively involved in politics and have made important contributions to the legislative agendas in their respective countries. They have established themselves as dependable partners in the development process and play a crucial role in promoting sustained and inclusive economic growth and in poverty eradication. They also continue to be influential through their involvement in civil society, women's organizations, as well in other civic engagement, including academia. Through these channels, women have been vocal in advancing the human rights of women and girls and advocating for legislative and policy changes. While women in the region occupy more ministerial posts today, they're still very much outnumbered by men. On average, less than 30% of ministerial portfolios are held by women. Among the primary barriers to women's participation in public and political life are gender stereotypes and cultural and negative social norms. Often, women are judged by different standards than men and are perceived as not being tough enough to be political leaders. In addition, the private lives of women politicians are scrutinized more strictly than their male counterparts. Women in the private sector face similar challenge. Mr. Chairman, there must be an enabling environment for women to achieve full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, with men as equal partners. In this regard, we emphasize the importance of family and the need for there to be shared responsibilities and a home environment that gives equal opportunities to boys and girls and that is free from violence. Childcare, education, healthcare, and robust social protection services are essential parts of this equation. The provision of education remains a strong focus in all CARICOM countries. Women and girls are encouraged to pursue their ambitions and their achievements are celebrated. However, while women in the region are more likely than men to have tertiary education, this does not always translate into higher earnings. A recent study suggests that women need to have higher educational levels if they want earnings at the same level as men. Despite higher access to and performance in secondary and tertiary education, they tend to have lower level and lower paying jobs and dedicate 3 times more time to unpaid work than men. In all countries of the region, the employment rate is lower for women. Though it should be noted that recent statistics show that women are more likely than men to be employed by government. Mr. Chairman, the COVID-19 pandemic has deepened gender inequalities and increased poverty. Women are disproportionately affected by unemployment, and COVID-related restrictions have dramatically increased the unpaid care and domestic burdens of women and girls, reflective of an entrenched gender division of labor. Violence against women and girls has escalated and school disrupted. Those living in poverty and in rural and indigenous communities are at particular risk of being left behind. In addition to COVID-19, the continuing impacts of climate change provide serious challenges and setbacks for our region, with women and girls being among the most affected populations. Amidst all of this, our women have shown immense fortitude and leadership, contributing in numerous ways towards COVID response and recovery efforts on the front line as healthcare and essential workers and community organizers, as well as some of the most effective national leaders in combating the pandemic. Mr. Chairman, sexual and gender-based violence and domestic violence against women and girls continue to be a major challenge for CARICOM member states. Our governments are consistently working to eliminate such violence, ensure access to justice for victims, and support for survivors. Among initiatives is improved data collection aimed at better understanding and addressing the underlying causes of violence. We continue to seek support from our developmental partners for building our capacity to collect credible data and information based on which evidence-based policies and action plans can be developed. CARICOM also recognizes the importance of engaging men and boys in efforts to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls. We firmly believe that a multifaceted approach that includes measures such as encouraging the equal sharing of responsibilities in areas such as parenting and household work, public awareness campaigns, the engagement of community leaders to address discriminatory social norms and gender stereotypes, as well as a robust legislative regime, can bring about significant changes. Mr. Chairman, we recognize that women's full and effective participation in public life is critical to fulfilling the potentials of our countries and essential to democracy. The member states of CARICOM take this opportunity to reiterate our commitment to ensuring that at national level, all efforts are made to bring about gender equality and the empowerment of our women and girls. Mr. Chairman, in my national capacity, on behalf of Guyana, I emphasize Guyana's commitment and comprehensive drive to eliminate the dark veil of violence which engulfs too many women and girls. Our cohesive multi-sectoral approach includes prevention and intervention strategies, including data collection and analysis to allow for evidence-based policy decisions. An aggressive reporting campaign is engendered by our toll-free 24-hour hotline, which enables victims of violence, abuse, and trafficking to access immediate help and support services. This is complemented by an app which links victims of violence to help services, vocational training opportunities, and resources to move them from dependence to independence. Mr. Chairman, deep psychological scars of violence haunt survivors. The Government of Guyana provides consistent psychosocial support through our Survivors Advocates program, countrywide one-stop advocacy centers for children and soon adult survivors consolidate all necessary services under one roof, including reporting and a forensic interview where children tell their story once to all reporting agencies in a protected environment. 3 sexual offenses courts and the planned expansion of legal aid services support access to justice for victims of violence from our hinterland to the coastland. Mr. Chairman, women's very survival and their entry into leadership and decision-making are hinged on unencumbered access to opportunities for training, resources, sustainable and viable income alternatives, and significant visible national and global platforms. Cognizant of the amplified gender disparity and economic exhaustion of female-led households in the COVID-stricken world, government has initiated countrywide technical and vocational training, micro-enterprise and cottage industry initiatives, creative funding opportunities, and dynamic marketing opportunities specific to women. Soon, we will be launching our first female business incubator. Mr. Chairman, Guyana invests in and includes girls in public life through public speaking engagements and training, exposure to all levels of government, representation at national and international events, and participation in developmental programs reflective of Guyana's commitment to facilitating their empowerment. There is robust conversation and action by government that supports women's inclusion and participation in decision-making at all levels in public spheres. 35% of our parliamentarians are women. Mr. Chairman, it is through our consistent global advocacy that barriers limiting women's full and effective participation in public life can be demolished, paving the way for dynamic and successive generations of female leaders across continents. I thank you.